Welcome back. A series of protests against the proposed GCSB spying bill are being held around the country this weekend. The bill is set to pass after United Future leader Peter Dunn pledged his support this week. In return, Dunn says some changes were made to the legislation, but those concessions did nothing to address the major flaws of the law. That's according to QC Dr. Rodney Harrison. He joined a number of prominent New Zealanders to criticise the bill at a meeting in Auckland this week. Dr. Harrison joins me now, along with another speaker, Thomas Reid from Tech Liberty, a civil liberties defence group. Good morning to you both. Thomas Reid, if I can start with you. Under these new laws, what could the GCSB do that you believe we should be worried about?
We believe that the main flaw in the bill is that it allows the GCSB to collect data about all New Zealanders and to store that and to analyse it. So it ends up in being a kind of a mass surveillance state where everyone's being watched.
Is that at the extreme? Is that a slightly alarmist approach that you're taking there?
Well, you might think so, but unfortunately that's already happening in the States and the United Kingdom. And we know that the GCSB is actually very closely allied with those two intelligence agencies, and we have to assume that they are trying to do the same thing here.
All right, Dr. Rodney Harrison, the government's explanatory note, now this accompanied the bill, and I want to quote from it. It says it will use its new cyber security capabilities to assist a range of public entities as well as private sector organisations such as critical national infrastructure providers and organisations of national significance. So what does that mean?
Well, it can mean anything to anyone, and that's part of the concern. The bill deals with collection of data, and as Thomas and others have said, the powers of interception and collection are far too wide. But there's nothing in the bill to deal with use of the data when collected and where it might end up, here or overseas.
So where could some of this information end up, do you think?
Well, I can say that it definitely will end up in the hands of the other partners in the Five Eyes partnership, including the US and the United Kingdom.
Why are they going to be interested, though, in this information? Why, if they collect metadata about me? They're not, are they? They're not going to be interested in that unless I've, given them some cause for alarm.
Well, if we had a system that actually collected data on the basis of reasonable suspicion, then that would be quite a different and much improved system. This is random, and the fact is that data can be collected which will assemble a picture about a person. You're
talking about cyber data here, though, aren't you, really? Because there will be some level of oversight. They can't just spy on me without getting a warrant to spy on me, can they, the GCSB?
Well, in some circumstances, warrantless interception is permitted. And what happens is that all data, including communications, is collected, and they may use what's called the metadata in a computerised way to find out connections, and then they can go to the more substantive data like a conversation or an email.
OK, Thomas, outline for us, if you will, what you think, what data they will be collecting on New Zealanders. What exactly are they going to be collecting?
Well, we expect them to be applying for access authorisations, which are a thing in the bill, for all the major telecommunications companies and internet providers to see basically what you're doing online, what sort of phone calls you're getting, who from, when, and so on. And they're not just interested in you, the whole point is they're interested in everyone. They want to watch everyone because, you actually might do something bad in the future, for example. So the idea is that they want as much information as they can to build up as big a database as they can so they can find out more information.
OK, do you accept, though, that there is a need for some level of cyber surveillance? Given that terrorism is now global, so too shouldn't the need to gather information on people be?
Well, I think we've got to say that we haven't had a terrorist attack in New Zealand for 25 years. I really don't see it as being a huge threat, and I find that hard to accept.
Well, we do need security agencies. Well, good saying that now, before an attack potentially happens.
Yeah, well, I think it's got to show a real risk. I mean, we have the advantage of living in New Zealand. We live at the bottom of the world. We don't have any enemies in the world. I think someone's going to make a much better effort to show the threats.
Has aligned us with America and Britain. Some would suggest that we do. Look what happened in Bali, for example.
I guess that's true. I mean, but again, it's not happening here. And again, they've got to show that there is actually reasonable cause, I believe. I think they should be concentrating on people who actually they have reasonable suspicions to follow, rather than just doing a blanket thing of everyone. I mean, as you said, are you a threat? You're probably not. Then why do they want to spy on you?
Well, they possibly don't, do they? That's the issue here, though, isn't it? Because we don't know, and they have said quite clearly, they being the government, that they would seek a warrant to spy on anybody, and there has to be some level of oversight before that can be done.
But unfortunately, that's what they've been saying, but that's not what the bill says. The bill says they can get access authorisations, and the GCSB has made this very arbitrary split between metadata and data. And they seem to believe, as shown by the Kitteridge report, that metadata does not need a warrant, does not need any sort of oversight really at all. Now, we think that if that's the case, they should be putting that in the bill explicitly, whichever way they go.
Dr. Harrison, what would you be comfortable with, if you like, in terms of oversight? Are you comfortable with what the government's proposed? At the moment, it has one person, maybe a three-person panel that will oversee the issuing of warrants. Is that acceptable to you?
No, that is not acceptable.
What would be?
Well, the problem is more fundamental than that, and the latest changes do not address it. That is the design of this bill and what it is in fact empowering the GCSB to do. If you have vague provisions and overbroad powers, oversight does not work, because an oversight panel is simply seeing whether the GCSB is complying with its legislation. If its legislation is totally overbroad and vague, the oversight cannot be meaningful. The conversation we're having today and on other occasions is great, but it's part of my objection to the way the bill is being rushed through. The debate about whether we want New Zealand to be a surveillance society, and if so, what kinds of surveillance, is not being held in the context of this bill. It's been shut out by the government, which is ramming the bill through with everyone, including MPs, in complete ignorance of what it will actually achieve.
They would argue that, there is a desire here for a level of urgency because it's, these laws govern terrorism. The Labor Party says it wants a review. In fact, you never quite know where the Labor Party sits on this. Sometimes you hear that they want to repeal it. Sometimes they say they want a review of our intelligence services. What do you think would be appropriate here? Well,
I've said publicly that we need a conversation, a national conversation about the sort of society we want. Do we want to simply follow the lead of our major security partners because it's in our best interests and become a surveillance society that has all manner of information and data harvested and stored forever? Or do we want, like the nuclear-free issue, to go our own way and apply New Zealand values?
OK, Thomas Beagle, what can you hope to achieve here? Because amidst all the protests and all the conversation, is John Key listening? Is the government listening? What can you hope to achieve by this?
I'm not sure if the government is listening that much, but if we have enough people turn out today and we have enough opposition and so on, I hope that both it will educate the people in the country and that the politicians will maybe take pause and rethink what they're doing. Otherwise, we're just going to have to wait for the next election.
All right, Dr. Rodney Harrison and Thomas Beagle, thank you both for your time this morning.